Shalom, and welcome to a message for the Parsha for Parshat Shoftim. One of the many mitzvot discussed in this week's Parsha is the Torah instructs us how we go about going out to war against other nations. And the Torah tells us the rules of engagement, and the rules of humanity, meaning that although these are our enemies, we're going to conquer them, but we still have to behave in humane manner. And one of the things the Torah tells us, the Torah says that when it comes to doing what would be the typical, tactical, strategical approach in laying siege on another city, on an enemy city, typically what they would do in those days is they would cut down the food supply. What would they do? They would destroy the surrounding orchards, all the trees, all the fruits, all the produce that are the ones that you typically would feed that city, and cut off the water supply in order to make the people, quote, buckle and surrender, and by weakening them so that you should be able to conquer them more easily. But the Torah tells us, when it comes to trees that produce fruit, when it comes to fruit trees, it says, quote, you should not cut down those trees. You should not destroy those trees. Why? Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. For man is the tree in the field, which means man is like the tree in the field. And when you cut down a tree that gives fruit, it's like cutting down a person. It's like killing a person. It's like taking the life of a human being. That's how vital it is. That's how important it is. So I gave you the background, but let's now focus in on these words. Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. For man is not like, but is the tree in the field. You see, this has great significance. In fact, in several weeks from now, we're going to be celebrating Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year for the entire world, especially for mankind. As it commemorates, it is celebrated on the very day that the human being was created. But there's something interesting. There's another Rosh Hashanah in the year which we celebrate, and that is Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of Shvat, which is the Rosh Hashanah for trees. Why do we celebrate that? What connection do we have to trees? And the answer is this verse, Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh, for man is the tree in the field. There is a strong, powerful, fundamental, deeply rooted connection between the human being and the tree. What is it? And now if we think about it, if we try to analyze, something doesn't seem to be right. You see, God, in his world, created various levels. There are various levels in the world. Starting from the lowest, take the inanimate, rocks, stone, soil, ground, mountains. Then you go to the next level, which is tzomeach, plant life, trees, all kinds of produce, all kinds of greenery. That seems already to have more obvious life. But yet you can't compare it to the level higher than it, which is chai, all living things, the animal kingdom. All kinds of animals and creatures. There you already see a much more vivid form of life. And then, of course, the highest of this pyramid, the highest point is the human being, who not only has life and has mobility and has all the functions that all those lower than him have, but the human being also has intellect and is able to control everything. So here is the question. How is it that we compare the human being to a tree? How is there an inherent quality in the tree which we don't say that the human being is like the tree? We say the human being is a tree. Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. For human being is a tree. Why? How does that make sense? How could that make sense? And the answer is that there is a quality in the tree, and for that matter in all plant life, but especially in the tree, in which we see a tremendous powerful quality which really brings out the essence of a human being, who a human being really is, or at least who a human being should be, who we should strive to be. And that is that there's an inherent quality in the plant life that is the most vital. And that is that when you look at a plant that's growing from the ground, you can actually see, it's visual, it's tangible almost, the connection it has to its roots, to its source of life. In other words, in order for it to be vital, in order for it to be vibrant, in order for it to grow, especially a tree to continue giving fruit, it must be connected. It must maintain that attachment to its source, from where it comes from where it grew from. The moment you detach it, it begins to deteriorate. It begins to, quote, die, like any fruit, any vegetable, any produce. And this is a lesson for the human being. God says for man is exactly like the tree of life, like the tree, that in order to maintain true life, in order to maintain a true, healthy connection, one has to be like a tree. One has to be like a plant. One has to be like a good tree that gives off fruit, but in order to do that, you have to always maintain an obvious, an actual, an active connection to your roots. Your roots, the source of life. In our case, it's to Hashem, to the Torah, to the mitzvahs. And also be like a plant, to continuously grow. The true sign, the true greatness of a plant, of a tree, especially a fruit tree, is that it continuously gives fruit, that it continues to grow, and that potential is exponential because that potential of the growth that it has is unlimited. Because if you think about it, every fruit that grows has seeds in it that can now produce more trees, and those trees can produce more fruits, and so on. And this is really what should be the hallmark of every single human being.